This episode is brought to you by our sponsor, Eldorado Gaming. Eldorado Gaming is your site for gifts and gaming accessories like dice, playmats, and other items to bling out your games. Use the promo code META for 10% off your order. Find us on YouTube at Eldorado Gaming TX or our home site at eldoradogaming.com. Here at My Mythical Meta, we talk about gaming with friends and strangers, resolving conflicts, and keeping game nights fun, interesting, and recurring. Our game of choice is Magic the Gathering, but our hope is that what we share is relevant for board gamers, RPG groups, video gamers, and maybe even your poker night. I'm Travis, and with my brother Benjamin and my friends Derek and Randy, we've been playing Magic together since 2014. The secret to a healthy meta is not in the game you play, it's being good friends. Subscribe to My Mythical Meta, presented by Eldorado Gaming, wherever you get your podcasts. Welcome back to My Mythical Meta. You are in for a very special episode tonight. We are down 2 members. We are down Derek and Randy, but I am joined by my one and only half-brother, Benjamin Campagna.
Hello, guys and girls and everybody else.
All right. Hey, Benjamin, how's it going?
It's going well. Yeah.
Derek had a tough day at work today, and Randy is packing up and getting ready to move to a new apartment with his girlfriend.
Ooh.
Yeah, it's getting serious.
A little bit serious, yeah. And hey, once they move in together, he'll have more time for us.
Exactly. And he did say that his new place has a big enough space for games, and it'll be a central location for us.
That's right. We don't have to drive all the way down there anymore.
So, we wish them both the best. We hope they use this time to take care of whatever business they need. And you and I, Benjamin, are going to talk about our little pet project.
Yeah, long time in the making.
20 years in the making, we have been talking about this pet project. Benjamin, tell our listeners about our special project.
When we were kids, you've heard a lot about us playing games as kids, but we wrote a role-playing game. We had just gotten into it with White Wolf and Dungeons & Dragons and Cyberpunk and Land of Og, and we just had so many role-playing games thrown at us that we made our own. We actually made a couple. We made a Pokemon role-playing game.
Yeah, that's true. I forgot about that one.
But the one that we really threw ourselves into, wrote core rules, made a bunch of characters, played several times, was a game called Martian Colony. And it's based around the giant robot genre. And especially back then, my biggest inspiration was Gundam Wing, which was playing on Cartoon Network. But there's so many different variations on this out there. What were some of your favorites?
When I was in high school, I was exposed all from Cartoon Network. Cartoon Network really pushed it out and affected my long-term growth. Big O, Zoids, in addition to Mobile Suit Gundam Wing. All of those were big influencers on my love for the giant robot genre. When I was in college, the feature film Pacific Rim came out, as well as the Transformers movies. The first Michael Bay Transformers movie came out in 2007, and I was working at Arby's at the time, and I remember imagining that the bun toaster was going to come to life and shoot ciabatta buns at me from that movie. So that really just became one of my all-time loves, and since then, I've only been exposed to even more. Gurren Lagann, Robotech, Ghost in the Shell, Evangelion, Code Geass. There was a really cool anime series that was on Netflix for a time. I remember renting it from Blockbuster called Bubblegum Crisis.
Yeah.
And it wasn't necessarily giant robots, but it was beautiful anime girls in robot suits.
Oh, okay.
And that was cool too. It was really neat. There are some standout pioneers in the cyberpunk future tech genre. Akira, Ghost in the Shell. These are some other, big hitters in this genre as well. Code Geass. There was a show that I watched on Netflix, I want to say around 2014 or 15. I don't think it's on there anymore. called Gargantia on the Verdurous Planet.
And I never heard of that. So what's that all about?
Basically, the entire planet is now ocean, and people live on these floating barges. And somebody discovers a mech underwater.
Oh.
Yeah. So now they have to figure out, like, where did this mech come from? What did pre-ocean civilization need a giant mech fighter for?
Right.
It was pretty cool. And I'm still playing Cyberpunk to this day.
Right, of course.
So there's something that all of these genres deal with, some overarching themes. And it's, what does authority do when it has the technology and the weapons to back itself up? When technology overarches a certain threshold in all of our everyday lives, and when war becomes so easy, when war becomes so instinctual because it looks like us. Like, that's what a mech suit to me kind of represents, is how a person would behave if they had the power of a nuclear warhead at their fingertips.
Yeah.
And could control it as if it were their own body. They could control it that easily. That is just something that affects me. It's something that I think about deeply, and obviously the Mobile Suit Gundam franchise deals with this in most of its main series franchises in the real robot genre. So I'm not really counting, Build Fighters or the tournament series. Like, those are more super robot,
right?
Where the robots have like magical powers and
well, yeah, because they're not real. They're
yeah,
computer
exactly.
programs, right?
Yeah. Well, G Gundam is kind of super robot.
That's true. Yeah.
But anyway, all of these real robot Gundam series are about war and how war affects, in a lot of these series, kids.
Yeah.
But even bigger than that, just how does war affect the human condition?
Right.
And that was something that, as you can tell, still really inspires me. And it's something that I think about often and that I get into in my media and in my gaming.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. For me, I remember that I thought Gundam, middle school me thought Gundam Wing was the deepest thing ever with the endless waltz of war, peace, and revolution. And the kids who were thrust into war and had to deal with that and all the loss. It was the first kids show that I watched where characters died and didn't come back,
Yeah.
And
for real.
Yeah.
See, middle school me was like giant robots are cool. and it wasn't until post college that I rewatched Gundam Wing. I made Kristen watch it during COVID, and I think I understood the actual story and the plot more for the first time.
Yeah.
And just appreciated it that much more.
Yeah.
Like, I remembered it because I like the robots. So I went back to it and then went through its dialogue on war, like you were saying.
Yeah. Looking back, I realize it's a very basic understanding of war. Like, there are other even Gundam shows that do it better, but I think what was so good about Gundam Wing was that the Gundams were so stylized, and the story had so many interesting references, like the Order of the Zodiac with all their various mechs representing the different... I remember making charts of all the different mobile suits and trying to, guess before they introduced the next, trying to guess what a Sagittarius mobile suit was, which never came out, but...
Which never happened.
Yes.
Give me my goatfish mech.
But it affected me enough that whenever I would go to arcades like Dave & Buster's, they would have Mech Warrior as a game, which is I don't know if they're not at a lot of arcades, but they have these giant pods that people get into and go around and shoot each other. And I would
Mech Warrior still has a booth at Comic Palooza every year.
Really? Oh yeah,
and it's not a booth, but it's like a giant.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I see that.
Like section with the pods still that you get into,
And I would always
the
name
full cockpits and stuff.
I would always name my mech Endless Waltz, and whoever was running it at Dave and Buster's, I had obviously never seen Gundam Wing because they were like, "What? How do you spell?" And they would look at me when I finally spelled it. They were like, and you could tell they thought, "Okay, this kid is very cringy." Whatever. I loved it. It was fun just, shooting different mechs. So at the time, my main influences as far as entertainment went were Gundam and role-playing games. And we were constantly making up stuff, right? And so we decided we were going to make this role-playing game. And, we had a lot of friends we wanted to get into it, so we wanted them to be able to pick it up quickly. We wanted something that was real easy as far as math goes, and combat. Gundam combat and mech combat in general is fast. It's explosive.
Very fast.
We wanted there to be accessible combat that resolved quickly, but that you could still describe these huge fight scenes with dodging and everything. We wanted, when it got time to roll the dice, it could happen quickly. You could easily see if you failed or not. You could easily see how quickly things were. But I personally really wanted it to still feel a little realistic without the slog. And so that's how we kind of created this game, was with those goals in mind.
Yeah, some goals that we had in making this game. And again, this is a game 20 years in the making. It started as kids when we just had the idea and the story, and we knew nothing about game design. But it was when Kristen and I had just gotten married, so that was 2014. I remember like picking it back up and calling you on the phone and being like, hey, do you remember Martian Colony? I want to start talking about that again. I want to pick it back up and start looking at some things that we know about game design and applying things that we like and avoiding things we don't. So we kept those core tenets of something that's quick to get into, easy math, fast roll resolution, knowing whether you succeeded or not without having to go through lots and lots of modifiers. And we wanted to have a game with lots of mech customization.
Yeah.
Like, that to me was just extremely important. The most fun part of a Giant Robot series is seeing what makes each mecha special and unique. The 5 Gundams in Mobile Suit Gundam Wing are each iconic for their own reason.
Yes.
They have a silhouette that stands out. If you didn't see the colors or you didn't see anything else, they have such striking character silhouettes that you can pick what each one is. And that is something that I wanted to capture in this game. Now, I didn't need to capture all of the crunchy mathematical, mechanical issues of a giant mecha suit. In getting back into working on Martian Colony, I researched a couple of other mecha-based games, and I found Mechton. And I bought 2 or 3 Mechton books. And this series did come out in the 80s. So you can really clearly see all of the original Mobile Suit Gundam influences throughout. And it's honestly a really cool book, but it is so extremely crunchy in its design. As in, whenever you're making your mech, you have to determine how many tons of weight it has, and then the energy output of the type of reactor that you put in, and then its speed is a factor of its tonnage based on its energy output versus how much weight each weapon is, and
it's
it was
too
just
much.
It's too much.
Yeah.
Exactly. I am not an engineer.
Yeah.
And I shouldn't need to be in order to play and love a game about giant robots.
Right.
That's something that we wanted to capture, was something that was super quick, instinctual, and stylized with lots of customization options.
Yes. And I remember, I don't know if you remember the big part where we did a lot of updating when I first moved back to Houston and became a teacher, mm-hmm. and we would spend lunch times away from the kids, hiding out from the students, updating our...
Yeah, hiding in my classroom with Martian Colony up on the smartboard.
Yes.
Yeah, and going through mathematical tables, making sure that the rules we came up with were fair, but also easy.
Yeah.
Another goal that I think is important in Martian Colony is dual character creation.
Yeah.
You're going to create both a human pilot and a mech. And there is enough depth in both of those character creations, and both of those quote-unquote characters, both your human and your mech, have enough detail and enough characterization that you could run an entire story entirely with one or the other.
Yeah.
That's something that I thought was important, because it stands out to me in Mobile Suit Gundam, but sometimes there are entire episodes that don't have giant robot fights, where it's just as much about the people.
Right, and sometimes there's episodes that are just giant robot fights. It's still about the people, but it's just, a whole episode of two robots clashing and very little happens.
And talking.
Yeah.
And talking about why they're doing the things they're doing.
Yep.
Yeah, that duality is something that I wanted to capture in this game.
And I've mentioned in a prior episode that one of my favorite things about role-playing is character creation. And that's always been true. I remember, as a kid, I would spend Saturday mornings while we're watching TV, I would just have out rule books creating D&D characters, coming up with weird ways to make a half-elf, half-dwarf, and or half-elf, things like, actually, it was half-elf, half-orc, which would never happen. It's an abomination. But I, figured out a way, right? And just all these different things. And so the fact that the characters, and especially mechs, were so customizable, right? That you didn't have to find out some weird way to make this thing, because you could just say, well, that's how the engineers built it.
Yeah, that's just how it built. Yeah, that's just how it was built.
Just how it was built. Yeah, it looks like how it looks because that's what the designers wanted, and it'll work even if it might not work in the real world, because this is a game.
Exactly, it's a game, and even more so, it's based on so much anime.
Right.
I'm sorry, not a lot of anime mech designers are concerned about whether the wings being placed there would actually generate flight.
Right, exactly.
It just looks cool and it's got jets.
Yeah, and so that's what we wanted to capture in our game design is, basically, can you star in an anime show that's serious and gritty and fun and full of intrigue and violence and just all the stuff that you would get in your typical Gundam or Big O type anime, but also not be, and the rules are complicated. It's an RPG. It's not Land of Og, even though that was an inspiration for me. I think we'll talk about that later.
Yeah.
But it's not Land of Og. It's not that simple. But it's simple enough that you can get people who aren't into heavy role-playing games to make a character and play it.
When we get to the system in a few minutes, I have used the system several times and just not used the giant robot stuff. I think it was for my birthday one year, I played a game called The End of the World.
Yeah.
Where I had Derek, Randy, Kristen, and Kristen create characters that were based on themselves in real life. Mm-hmm. And I used our character creation technique to do that.
Oh.
Or our system to do that.
Yeah, that's cool. I didn't realize.
And it seemed pretty quick, and they got it very fast. It was awesome. So we'll get to that stuff in just a little bit. So every great game has a story along with it. We've talked in some past episodes about why people play games, and it's to tell a story.
Yeah.
And a lot of role-playing games will do this too. Even though role-playing games usually rely on the game master or the dungeon master to create a story, they will still provide a setting. And we came up with a setting as well. Our setting is a classic, it's timeless, it's a tale as old as time. And Benjamin, I'm going to let you tell it, because I think most of it was you in when you were in middle or high school.
Yeah, I've always been into acronyms and trying to find out clever acronyms, and there were several. But the idea was that mankind has gone out to space and started colonizing. And, of course, we colonized the moon. There's space stations everywhere. And we've colonized Mars. And, that's always been the dream. This is not the distant future necessarily, because it's, we're talking about it now in the real world. But the idea was that in order to get out there, Earth had kind of been consolidated under a single government called the New Allied Government of Earth, or New Age for short.
God, I still think that is just poetic perfection.
Thank you.
The New Age. It's just a new time in human prosperity, my guy.
Yeah.
When the governments of Earth are finally working as one together for prosperity of mankind. It's the dream.
Yep. Except, of course, it's never as good as it seems, because what have they done? They've sent people out to space who are not part of the culture anymore. They're separated from the Earth. They have their own interests. They're being exploited for the Earth's gain, and they want freedom, or they want equality, or they want independence, they want representation, whatever it is, whatever a colony always wants. And so they went out and they've kind of been conspiring, behind the New Age's back and forming a rebel alliance to fight for that. And what did we call that? The rebel?
We ended up calling it the Colony Resistance Forces.
Yeah, the CRF. Yeah. And is that still what we use?
It's what's in the book now. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. That's something that could change. I'd love to come up with a new cool acronym.
A catchy acronym
Right.
for them.
But
Yeah.
I mean, if we're being fair, they would probably just call themselves the Resistance or the Freedom Fighters or something. So
The First Order.
right, right.
Or Mars First.
That's probably what they would do. Yeah.
Mars First Faction or something like that.
Is that from
those real MFers. The Mars Firsters. That's what they'll call themselves.
Right. Make Mars great again.
I mean, it's to me, this story is a classic.
Yeah, absolutely.
Obviously, we're North Americans.
Yeah, so
we're United States citizens. It's part of something we grew up with. This heroic story of fighting against oppressors for freedom and equality, and it is just something that resonates so strong, and it goes in our setting really well.
Right. Part of this idea that the people have gone out to space is that humans start getting exposed to other environments, to different forms of radiation. They start breathing in different air, or who knows what it is, but whatever it is, they start developing kind of these superhuman traits, and some of them are on Earth and some of them are in space, but I think we called it the X gene, or the
it was just a trait. People were called extraordinary.
Yes.
And if you were called extraordinary, then it was shortened to an X. You were an X. And something made you special. Something just made you better than every other normal person. Maybe it was the rigors of space. Maybe it was genetic experimentation.
Yeah.
It could be anything. Maybe it was God. Maybe it was divine intervention. It could be anything. But X's are going to make better warriors.
Right.
And they're going to be recruited by both sides, and they're going to willingly sign up for both sides. It doesn't matter. If somebody realizes that they have a gift to make a big impact, then they're going to get wrangled some way into this conflict.
Yeah. And this has inspiration from a lot of different directions. So obviously the Gundam series, several of them have this idea of the Gundam pilots just being superhuman, being more capable of interacting with the machine, having lightning reflexes. Even the original Gundam series had those superhumans that kind of developed towards the end.
Were they new types or space noids?
They were new types.
New types.
Yeah.
Is what they called them in
Mobile Suit Gundam.
Original Mobile Suit Gundam.
Yeah.
Gundam 00 had one too.
Yeah, what did they call them?
What did they call them? But Setsuna becomes an innovator.
Oh, innovators. Yes.
Yep.
Innovate.
And innovators were somehow superhuman psychics.
Yeah.
It happens a lot in Gundam.
Yeah.
You'd be surprised.
But even in Gundam 00, they you also had the folks that were part of that school, or like this, where they were experimenting, and Super Soldier Number 1 came from there.
That's right.
So did
Alleluia and Marie.
Yep.
Were from the Super Soldier School.
Yeah.
That's right.
And so just like in our game, there were various ways it could happen. But I also took that inspiration from Mage, or White Wolf games in general have a lot of different types of characters, but Mage characters got extra points in character creation because they were just that much more special in creation in the universe that existed, that they, there was something that stood out about them even before they were awakened, and they just had extra attributes and extra,
Yep.
And so I kind of took that inspiration from the game design point of view and said, you know what, we're going to make you a special character who's somebody important in this fight, either for stability and peace, right, if you're on the New Age side, or for freedom and independence on the CRF side.
the quote-unquote greater good.
Right. And something else that went into this story and the design of the game was the idea that you could play it as it's time to do a suplex, the way Derek likes.
Yeah.
Or it could be a lot of political intrigue, spy, thriller, like I'm infiltrating the other side. Mm-hmm. I'm trying to find the secret that makes their mechs better than ours. I'm trying to find the Zero system or whatever. And you could play it in
Trans Am or whatever the new Mobile Suit Gundam thing is for the next series.
Right, exactly.
What were they? Trans Am, the Zero System, Hades?
Yeah, Hades.
That was one.
There was Exam.
Anyway.
Yeah, all those. So, yeah, the idea was you could make it a political type intrigue game where you're sneaking and spying and doing your manipulation checks or whatever, or you can make it I'm a big dumb character who flies a big dumb mech and I'm going to beat things up at every opportunity, and both would be the right way to play this game.
Just depends on what you and your play group, what you and your meta want to make of it.
Yeah. And in fact,
do you want to play Evangelion with this system? Do you want to play Zoids with this system? Or do you want to play Ghost in the Shell?
Yeah.
Where it's much smaller scale and it's more about the secrets? Or is it about war? Is it about aliens? You can make aliens.
That's true.
In this game.
Absolutely.
Sure.
Yeah. And I love that you could do both. You could make a character that was smart and manipulative and had very little strength, but then when they hop in their mech, they're a big warrior. You could do both.
Yes. You can do both in a game where you make two characters.
Exactly.
The human and your mech.
Yeah.
Yeah. Let's talk about the system.
Okay.
The system that we created. When we were in middle school, our two main games were White Wolf games, namely Mage the Ascension, and again in Scouts we had played Dungeons and Dragons, and this was 3rd edition at the time.
Yes.
We had seen Land of Og at an anime convention, and I think somebody had bought the book for it.
Yeah, and Will and Kyle had made
Yes.
a version of Land and Og where they played conquistadors that got an extra die, and they were like the bad guys of,
and they were like the next level of Neanderthal.
Yes, exactly.
The person who's evolved one more step.
Yeah. That inspiration. We had mostly played the White Wolf games and Dungeons and Dragons, but Land of Og was my inspiration for a simple system. That's where the rest of this came in, and the stuff we're about to talk about is I do want to give a lot of credit to Land of Og, where I realized, you could play this whole game and only ever roll one kind of die in one kind of way. That's what inspired the simplicity of this system.
Yeah.
So.
We are going to talk a little bit about game design. I hope that you stay interested because we want people to play test this.
Yes.
So after our discussion of the system, we are going to invite playtesters to contact us, and we do want to get this system out into the hands of our listeners and playtesters. So I hope you'll give it a chance if you're interested in the giant robot genre. So each character has 6 core attributes: strength, dexterity, and stamina. Those will probably sound familiar to you if you've played Dungeons & Dragons. Yep. Intelligence, perception, and then influence. Perception is something that I thought was important from the White Wolf games.
Yeah.
It's the way you observe and take in the world. And then influence is the way you exert social power. Mm-hmm. The way you exert, non-physical change.
Yeah.
So strength, dexterity, stamina, intelligence, perception, and influence. And each of these is rated on a score of 1 to 10. And starting at character creation, you get 30.
Yes, 30 points to split among the 6 stats.
30 points to split among those 6 stats, which means
average is 5.
The absolute generalist could have a 5 in each of them. Mm-hmm. And then something that both White Wolf and Dungeons and Dragons do is there is a set of skill options. The core attributes go with just generically all things that a person does in the world can be attributed to one of those 6 categories, and then a set of skills. And those skills are more specific. Those can improve a person's chances of success, and those were rated from 1 to 5. And again, those are more specific, and I think at character creation, somebody would get...
You can just look it up, can't we?
Here it is. Characters start with proficiency points equal to 1/3 their starting attribute.
So 10.
Yeah, so 10. And if you wanted to make a higher level game, then you just start with more core attribute.
Yeah.
You and your play group, or you and your game master, you just say, hey guys, instead of starting at 30, we're starting at 40, or whatever. The next part, the single die and how it's rolled and how it's read, this is the core mechanic of this game.
My goal was, you know how easy it is to create a character, and the higher your points, the better you are, right? Rated on a scale of 1 to 10. But then I said, how can you make the simplest possible die roll where you don't have to worry about modifiers? That was the biggest thing that always annoyed me about Dungeons and Dragons.
That is still a turnoff for me playing Pathfinder and D&D.
Yeah.
Is all the skill modifiers and how there's just no ceiling. It just goes on forever, and things can just keep getting harder and harder and harder, no matter how good I get at something.
And for me, it's, you roll your D20 in Dungeons and Dragons, and you add your +3 modifier, and then you're trying to hit a target number that changes all the time. You cannot sit down with a character sheet and a D20 and know if you succeeded or not. It changes, like you said, depending on your dungeon master, and they could make something harder than your character can do at all times, right?
Yeah.
But for this, I like that you just start with a single die. You use this one die for all.
And that die is a D10 in this game.
Yes, we did finally settle.
A single 10-sided die.
Yeah, we settled on a D10. Because this is what bothered me about White Wolf, is that, yes, they simplified their system by using D10s, but they use a bunch of D10s. And the better...
Yeah, you need 10. You need 10 at a time.
Yes, and they have the same problem where if you want to make something hard enough, you just require 4 successes, 5 successes. And so for this... There's still target numbers. Harder things require more successes, but what it is you roll a single D10, and you're trying to get a low number. Because the lower you are below your attribute plus your skill, that's how much you succeed. Basically, if you have a 5 in an attribute and a 5 in your skill, then you have 10. You're trying to roll below a 10. It's really easy. And you succeed if you got below a 10. The further below a 10 you got, the more you succeeded. And if you roll above a 10 somehow, that in this case not possible, then you failed. So let's say that you had a 6 in the attribute and a 2 in the skill, which would be a pretty common thing to happen. You have to roll below an 8.
Yeah.
Well, in that situation, you're very likely to succeed. But if you roll an 8 or a 9, you failed. If you roll the 10, you critically failed, right? And that was it.
Well, so something important about our system, most D10s actually have the numbers 0 through 9.
Right.
They have the numbers 0 through 9. And that's exactly how it's read in this game. So you don't roll a 10, you roll a 0. And that's great.
Right. 10s are your...
Rolling a 0 is really, really, really good. Because that means...
Automatic success.
And that's an automatic... I don't think we settled on
because
automatic success
because it's
an automatic failure.
Because it's always
But
below.
it would automatically be below your score.
Right.
Below your rank.
Yeah, that's true. It's not an automatic success in the sense that sometimes the required difficulty is 2 below. I think 2 below was our standard difficulty for most things.
I think 1 below is the standard difficulty,
Okay.
But if something's really hard, then it's 2 below. I mean, I just put in the opening thing, we called it a game mechanic because we were cheeky and had to come up with something,
Right.
a specific name for ours, so it's not a game master, it's a game mechanic. They can adjust the difficulty of an action by adjusting the required score. Most tasks require a score of 1 or 2 below. That's it.
Yeah. I think when we very, very first wrote it, I think it was 2 below.
Yeah.
But that's also because we weren't using D10s, we were using D12s back then. When we adjusted it to D10s and the possible ranges became tighter, we adjusted it to 1 below.
Yeah.
And then for gargantuan tasks, it may be 3 below or even 4 below. But that's it. There's a cap on how hard something can be, right? 10 below.
Yeah, that exactly.
And that's, I don't know. We've never gone that low on a thing. But yeah, and the reason 0 would be an automatic success is because, or for a standard action, if the requirement is 1 below, 0 is always going to be below your base attribute of 1. So you did it. Congratulations. Yeah. And it's so simple to look at it and say, how much did I succeed? I rolled 2 below, right? And so it's really easy. You only need the 1 die. You do need a second die for mech combat. Because I think we don't use D10s for mechs, right?
No, it is a D10 as well for
Okay,
mechs.
I think you
everything in mechs is settled on a scale of 1 to 10 also.
Okay.
There was a time where it was 20 and there was a time when it was 12, but I think we settled on just a D10.
Yeah. Okay, great. You need 1 die. Everybody in your play group needs 1 die, a D10 to play the game. And that way you can say, you know what? I want to make this die as cool as possible. You can go to Eldorado Gaming and buy a nice nice fancy metal D10. I think the Temple Guardians would be great for a mech game.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
And you're like, okay, great. I've got my 1. It's super fancy. And every time I do anything in this game, You roll the one die, and you see how much you succeeded or failed. I love the system. It's very, very simple to use. I think for a time, we did kind of go back on this and say, people naturally want to roll high numbers. It's really unintuitive to think lower is better. And so there was a time where we tried to figure out modifiers so that high rolls were better. And we ultimately just decided, you know what? It's not worth all the additional problems that creates. Just rolling low is better.
It really is.
Yeah, it's just so simple.
Rolling low is better. It's just, instead of thinking high number's good, high number's good, high number's good, you just think this number between 1 and 10 is my probability. It's my percentage of succeeding at a task. And if I have a 10 in something, I should have a 100% chance to pass that skill.
Yeah.
Right? Because I'm a superhuman.
Right, exactly.
If I'm a superhuman and I have a 10 in strength, I should just succeed in strength checks. Now, if there's a 2-ton rock falling on me, well, set the difficulty at 6 below.
Right.
That way I only have a 40% chance to, whatever.
There you go, yeah.
But
the game mechanic can do that math for you and say even a superhuman with 10 strength is unlikely to survive this, and set that difficulty higher. But it's still easy math for you as the player.
It's so easy, so fast, and it just requires elementary level math to figure out in the moment.
Yeah.
Contests are treated very similar. Instead of having a single target number of scoring 1 or 2 below, you just compare your result to the opponent's result. So in an arm wrestling competition, both of the players would roll strength, and whoever got more below their rating would win that contest.
Yeah.
And that's it.
Yeah. Really, really easy. Contested actions are so easy. I do remember when we played this, and the combat just went so fast. Now it was mech combat. We didn't do a person combat, but it follows the same concepts.
Yeah, mech combat is almost identical.
Yeah.
Now we're not going to go into all of the mech weapons and some of the mech systems. Like we said, we want it to be quick, but it does still feel. I mean, I think it feels pretty cool.
Yeah.
The way damage is allocated and how it affects how the battle transpires, because things can happen to your sensors, things can happen to your movement, things can happen to your weapons, and so on. And I think that makes each battle unique.
Yes,
because you can still do things like called shots. I want to call a shot to his cameras. Well, that's going to make the shot a little bit harder, but if it succeeds, you're going to get the exact result you want of a blinded opponent and stuff like that. So I'm going to leave that for any playtesters who want to check it out.
Yeah.
But I think it's really intuitive and a lot of fun. Obviously, we're happy to talk about it.
Right.
I mean, that's what we're doing. We're doing a whole episode about
it. One last thing before we move on. I know you said you didn't want to get into it, but one of the things I like about this story of role-playing as opposed to a lot of the other ones we do is that in the tensest battles, like think of a D&D game where you're playing a warrior and you're going head to head with a dragon, and it has burned you and clawed you, and you're hanging on for dear life, and you survive the encounter with 1 HP, and you get to bring your gold or whatever. Well, that's great, and that was a cool story. But when the next session starts up, you either have to fast forward super far into the future or talk about magic, healing, and all this stuff, and you have to come up with some weird thing about why you're not just crippled for the rest of your life. But in a game where most of the fighting happens in a mech, if your mech hangs on with a pitiful little thruster to get you back to base and you accomplish your mission, you just hop into a new mech, and that explains the rapid healing, right? Okay, we go to debrief while the mechanics repair the mech.
Yeah, leave the mech in base, and they're gonna magically handwave it into the next upgraded version for the next episode.
Yeah, exactly. Because that's what.
Yeah, and we do have a system for that. We call it salvage and experience.
Yeah,
you gain experience, and so does your mech. It's gonna get upgraded after each battle.
Right.
Because of the rewards and the spoils of war.
Yep.
Yeah.
And your organization rewards you for successful missions, right? They trust you with higher tech, all of that. Yeah.
Yeah. One other thing kind of philosophically in this game's design, as Benjamin and I have said before, we are min-maxers. We really enjoy finding ways to take a system and push it to its limits.
Yeah.
Or take a particular style and push it to its limits. And we wanted this game to encourage players to do that as well. Our character creation system encourages players to specialize. A generalist is actually kind of going to be punished by those choices because you're not going to get as many bonuses and rewards as you would if you sunk more points into one particular task or one particular skill. There's an aspect of character creation called assets and defects. Assets are role-playing bonuses that further reward specialization choices. So the higher strength you chose at the beginning during character creation, well, that's going to give you more asset points to spend on further strength-based bonuses. So it's going to reward you exponentially.
Yeah.
And the other side of that is defects. These are drawbacks you can take during character creation, and those drawbacks grant you additional points that you can spend elsewhere. We were inspired by merits and flaws in Mage the Ascension, but we think it's a role-playing style that we want to reward. If we want somebody to be the best sharpshooter with handguns, and then as their defect, they take a limp, well, that's a really cool character already. I can see that in an anime.
Yeah.
Of somebody walking with can't you imagine somebody walking with a cane, a bowler hat, and smoking a cigar, and then they whip out a 6-shooter and just fan the hammer?
Absolutely.
Like, that's a really neat character, and we want to reward that. And I think our character creation does that really well.
Yeah, I agree.
So, yeah, we want to invite people to look at our game and to play it for free. Our game is in a Google document that we are ready to share with you. So if you contact us at mymithicalmeta@eldoradogaming.com, use an email address that's capable of accessing shared Google Docs, and just, let me know in the email description that you're interested in testing Martian Colony. And I'm happy to grant listeners access to our document. A couple things we want more people to test out and see. Send us mech builds that you think break the game or are very powerful using starting specs. At the end of the rulebook, we do have a couple of sample mechs available, things that kind of fit the story, and a couple of builds that we think are really cool, but we want to see what other people can come up with. Also, this game is still in a very, very prototype stage. It is not fit for publishing yet, but we want to get it there. So if you have artist recommendations who you think could provide cool mecha or anime art for a game like this, the anime style that I really like is that mid-90s art style, like Cowboy Bebop,
Yeah.
Evangelion, Outlaw Star, obviously Gundam Wing. Any others for you?
No, those are the big ones. I do like the Cowboy Bebop. I like...
there's definitely a newer anime style that's come out where everything is a lot shinier.
Yeah, I don't really like it as much.
But having, I don't know, that pencil, charcoal-looking drawing to me is
like Steins Gate.
really cool. Yes.
Yeah.
So if you know good artists, let us know. If you have story or mission recommendations that fit the genre, that is something that we would want to provide in a published book as well. Beginner missions or missions that fit the genre. And obviously, if there are problems or blank spots in the rules, something that you think does not work intuitively the way you think it should, or if something is missing and you want to know a rule for it, put those things on our radar. Playtesters will also get a promo code to Eldorado Gaming worth 15% off. All of our promo codes right now are worth only 10. So if you want in, and if you want a way to get more Eldorado Gaming product, get in on the ground floor with Martian Colony. Obviously, when we get this game into a publishing state, playtesters will obviously get playtesting credits in the book as well.
Yep.
We're beginners, and we just think this is a cool opportunity to get our work out there and see what strangers think of it.
Yeah, I'm happy to see that something that we started so long ago has a chance to to reach other people like us who are into this style of gaming and this style of anime, and hopefully provide you an experience that you can't really get anywhere else. So I would love feedback from people who aren't us, who weren't there at the beginning.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, yes, please
Yeah,
reach out
that's
to
a
us.
major thing. The only people we've gotten feedback from is each other.
Well, our wives.
We play tested with Derek and Randy, and I play tested it in one of my other groups a long time ago. God, 5 or 6 years ago, maybe.
Yeah, and it wasn't that
we
long
played
ago.
3 sessions. It was fun.
We started a game with our wives, and it wasn't that long ago. My wife brought it up.
Oh
and
my
said,
God, that's right.
And she was like, "Hey, when are we going to play that again?" So
Oh my God, I forgot about that.
it has kept. Yeah, I have the folder here.
Cool.
It's got our story and all our characters in it.
I remember Sarah made an old lady.
Yes. Yeah.
See, guys, and that's what we mean. Like, it is so anime to have an old lady
Yes.
mech pilot.
It really is. It was
It really
great.
is. I just
Well, and
I think
I
that's
played
really cool.
the silent bodyguard to that old lady.
That's right.
Like that.
That's
I
right.
can just see an anime where there's an old lady just going around doing her thing with her little bodyguard that doesn't say a word, and then they both jump into their mobile suits and kick butt. It's great.
Yeah, God, that's so anime. I love that. All right, so again, if you are interested in playtesting Martian Colony, contact us directly at mymithicalmeta@eldoradogaming.com. All right, guys, we do have a news from the Warfront. And oh my, is it a doozy?
Yeah, when Travis sent me this, I laughed a bunch. So it's from our board games, which is, one of our main stomping grounds there. So the guy is asking if he's the jerk, the IATA.
It's a very long post. We're not going to read the whole thing, but it's very detailed. The guy has written like 10 pages.
Yeah, it goes on and on about this game night, and he's hanging out with his friends, and there's this married couple, and he mentions the wife of the married couple is drunk, and they're playing Monopoly, and the husband of the wife keeps offering game advice and pointing out when someone lands on her property so she doesn't miss rent, because the poster on this thread plays with the house rule where if you don't ask for rent, then they don't have to pay it to you. Which is not my favorite way to play Monopoly.
Me neither.
Yeah.
I just it's part of the game to collect your rent.
Right. I mean, that's yeah. It's
know?
not adding
Anyway.
skill. I have heard people say, hey, that it makes people pay attention because the game drags on forever if they don't, but it also drags on forever if people aren't collecting rent. So they're playing Monopoly, which is probably their first mistake, and they're playing it drunk. Or at least there's drinking involved here.
Yeah.
And the poster is trying to beat this drunk lady, and the husband of the drunk lady keeps pointing out that somebody owes her rent, or hey, you shouldn't trade with that guy, which she does anyway, or hey, you should build houses on your stuff, which she does. And the posters gets really upset about it and ultimately ends up losing to this drunk lady. And once he lands on one of her properties that's built up too high, he's just kind of like, fine, here's all my stuff, and leaves the game.
Now I do think he, literally loses. He's just out of money, and I don't think did he say he just stands up and leaves?
No, I think he said he gave her. I don't
Hitting
think
her
he
property
was
twice, and I was done. I gave her my holdings and quit the game. Okay.
Yeah. So it's ambiguous whether or not he was actually, like, if he lost. I think that he probably could have mortgaged all his stuff and still been in the game, but that's not a great place to be. So I get it.
Yeah. So it might have been a rage quit, or it might have just been the guy ending after a drunken game night.
Yeah. But the question he asks is, am I the jerk for being upset about this, or should he have not been offering this person advice? He's asking if his friend, the husband, was a jerk for stepping in and helping his wife win. So this is a doozy, and ultimately, I think there was a general consensus on the Reddit thread that yes, you are the jerk here, not your friends. But that's not what we want to discuss. That's not really the point of view that we approach things from on My Mythical Meta. We're not really here to talk about whether or not people are jerks, because that's not really productive, right? It's good that he gets called out on that on our board games, because maybe it's a wake-up call to him to adjust his attitude. But this is an issue that probably could have been avoided with some of the advice that we like to talk about.
Yeah, human beings are complex. And labeling someone a jerk, I don't think is going to help him get better at future game nights. So, that's not the question we're going to answer.
Yeah.
He's asked, am I a jerk for what happened at this game night? But I think this person needs help reading the room and establishing expectations on the kind of game night they want to have. There are a couple things that are happening that I think this poster should have seen and taken to heart.
Yeah.
First of all, alcohol's involved. By definition, that means this is a party night.
Yeah.
This is a party night and not a competitive scenario.
Yep. Well, you knew it wasn't competitive because they're playing Star Wars themed Monopoly.
Okay, that's true too. Yeah, it just Benjamin, you're the one who's been to board game championships. Does Monopoly have a category?
No, it does not.
No. It does not.
No.
All right, there's too much variance, too much luck involved.
Yeah, it's almost determined from the beginning of the game. If you roll certain ways, then you're going to win. If you roll on and land on somebody's property at the wrong time, doesn't matter how well you played. If you're consistently landing on someone else's boardwalk and they're not landing on your properties, it doesn't matter how well you played, right?
Yeah.
And that's all it has to do with the dice.
Yeah, it just doesn't matter. It's not a competitive game. We do think our board games comes at them hard just for playing Monopoly in the first place.
Yeah.
But that's another story.
Yeah, we grew up playing Monopoly. We had lots of fun. We've mentioned it multiple times. Playing Monopoly is a great, but it's not great if your goal is to prove that you're the best and be competitive and strategize. That's not what it's for.
God, I won a game of Monopoly when I was 3.
Yeah.
That's a recurring story in our family just because of the dice rolling. Like, it simply doesn't matter.
My son won a game of homeschoolopoly when he was 4, and he certainly didn't know what he was doing.
Okay, so this is clearly not a competitive scenario. Alcohol's involved, which means whatever strategic thinking would be necessary is not one of the expectations. And the nature of the game itself is not competitive either. The poster does say, when I roll to win, but...
Whatever that means.
Anyway. These are some things the person should have seen. He sees his other friends openly discussing game strategy. Okay, if I'm openly discussing game strategy with an opponent, even if it's my wife, then that means my own winning is not as important. And there's not much game strategy in Monopoly in the first place.
Right.
Acquire property, build on it.
Right.
Like, I don't know. How many games do you have to have played to understand that that's the winning strat?
Not many. I mean, my kids get it. They've only played a few times.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know. It just seems like the environment of this game was not one where the guy is saying, "Oh, you missed your triggers. Oh, you missed your triggers. I win. Game win."
Right.
And you talked about that before we started recording about competitive Magic tournaments.
Yeah, in a friendly game of Magic, like let's say the 4 of us, the Metapods, whatever we're called.
Yes, that's what we should call ourselves. We are the Metapods.
There you go.
I'm hardening right now.
When we get together, we want each other's decks to do the thing. We want to see we want a fair game of Magic, even if we're playing an unfair deck. We want to beat each other at our best. And if we see that someone else should get an extra treasure or has a good block or whatever, we'll tell each other, right? And we'll say, hey, you missed your trigger. You should gain a life here. And sometimes we have to do that over and over again to our friends. We allow takebacks. We do all this stuff because we're not in a competitive environment. But if I go to a Grand Prix or even, Friday Night Magic when there's a lot of prizes on the line.
Yeah.
And if you lean over to another game and say, hey, you missed your trigger, one or both of you is getting a game loss, especially at a Grand Prix or a PTQ or those high-level tournaments where you're at competitive rules level enforcement.
Yeah, where money or product is on the line. Yeah.
If you tell someone game strategy or rules information or anything like that, they will lose and you'll get an infraction for trying to help. Like it's that big a deal. But there is nothing like that for Monopoly, and no one goes into that environment drinking alcohol, and you don't play that sort of thing with your friends or your wife or husband or whoever it is. Right? I think there's a time and place for both. And my biggest thing for him, he's not wrong in certain environments, right? That was the point I was trying to make with the Grand Prix competitive Magic, right?
Right.
And I would be so mad if there was something on the line. And there are times where I'm playing against a rival, right? Maybe you, maybe it's my friend Daniel or Will, where I really want to win for personal reasons.
Yeah.
I think when we go into those scenarios, it's clear, this is a pride match, or it's a grudge match, or it's something where we'll say, like, this is cutthroat. And I'll just point out, I'm not going to remind you when you miss your triggers because I want to win this game.
Yeah.
Right. And I think the problem is knowing the difference between when it's important to win and at what cost, and when it's important to just chill and have fun. And it seems like this guy kind of missed it. I think that this can be solved by establishing it early, because sometimes, even in our friendly games, we want to have that kind of game.
Yeah.
And we just got to say it first. Hey, this is important. Randy, you need to pay attention.
This one's for the belt.
Yeah, exactly.
This one's for the belt of the weekend.
Yeah, we're tracking our games. Winner gets an extra booster pack out of the box. Right.
Ooh, you have my attention.
Ooh. Yeah, we can start doing stuff like that. But there are times where we want to have a more competitive environment, and we just need to say it. We don't do that often because, other than Magic, if we're playing new games, it's because somebody in the group is learning it.
Yeah.
And so we're doing it to have fun.
Games are there to have fun. How many times do we have to say this?
Yeah. Well, some people play to win. They need to recognize that if the other people are not there to win, then y'all are playing. It's almost like you're playing by different rules. And it's always going to be that the person there to have fun is not the one who's the jerk.
Yeah.
Unless everyone has agreed you're in a competitive environment. I think that if husband and wife are drinking and having fun, and husband's trying to help drunk wife win a game of Monopoly, they're the good guys. Sorry, guy. And, some people are really good at this. They're really good at just reading the room, and they already know, can I be more competitive here? Should I back off? Some people have a harder time, and a lot of my life, I've had a harder time knowing when is it appropriate to be competitive and when is it appropriate to just have fun. And that's something I've had to learn. What is everyone else here for? I've actually started analyzing that, and we've talked about how I've dialed back decks because of that. And in
our meta.
Yeah, in our meta.
That Benjamin was the one playing at a really high competitive level, and me and Derek and Randy, one, weren't there, and two, didn't really have the intention of getting there.
Yeah, that wasn't why you were playing. Learning to read the room, I had to do it with my wife. I certainly have to do it with my kids.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think that's very valuable, and I think if more people would cultivate the attitude of, I'm here to play, let me figure out what everyone else is playing for. And if you can't tell, there are many people where their skills are elsewhere, and unspoken social interaction is very difficult, then work up the courage to ask, say, hey, we're about to play this game. Do you want to play competitively, or do you want to have fun? And put it on them to tell you, like, hey, yeah, I'm here to win. Okay, great. Then I'm not going to pay you if you don't call me out on my rent.
Yes, right? Yes. Just ask. We have words, and you can use them.
Yeah,
and other people know words too, and they can answer your question. And if this was a friendly, he says these people are friends.
Yeah.
So ask them. Ask them
absolutely.
why they're playing, and ask them what level of game they want to play.
And I've done this on more than one occasion. I've never had someone get mad at me for going, really? You didn't know this was just to have fun? They just tell you, because it helps them have the kind of night they want. And this is for his benefit, too. Oftentimes, if you ask somebody, are we here to just have fun, or do you want to be competitive? A lot of times, just asking that question kind of raises someone's competitive spirit. And they're like, heck yeah, we're here to be competitive.
Yeah.
And he'll have more competitive games when he asks that question first.
I totally agree. Just asking the question is going to put everybody on their toes. Like, this is a dark horse that I need to look out for.
Yeah.
And it can be fun.
Exactly.
To race that person.
Oh, yeah. Competition is
if
great.
You know that they're up for a race.
But yeah, exactly. Racing somebody who's not racing is not fun for either one of you. My kids do this all the time where one kid will run ahead and say, haha, I beat you. And the other person goes, well, I wasn't racing. And then they fight about it.
Yeah. Oh, my gosh.
But the truth is, we don't stop doing that as adults. We just changed the format. Of course you won when your friend wasn't racing, or in this case, wasn't playing Monopoly competitively.
Yeah.
Right? Or you still lost, even though they weren't playing competitively, and that feels awful. And that seems to be where this guy is coming from.
Yeah, I think that's where this person's coming from is, she wasn't even trying, and she won.
Yeah.
And again, that's just luck from Monopoly. That's just bad luck.
But it does feel bad to lose to somebody who's not trying, who's drunk and whatever. And I will end this with kind of a personal note. Sometimes you can use that to your advantage. In high school, I did used to go to parties with friends and such. And, you and I, we had a contract with our grandparents. We weren't going to drink. We weren't going to. So I kept that. But I still went to the parties where drinking was happening. And so.
No.
We'd start playing poker.
Benjamin, no, you wouldn't.
And they were playing poker for fun. And I was playing poker for money.
Hey, if there's money.
Yeah, I mean.
Yeah, I want it.
Yeah, I needed gas money.
Yeah.
So everyone knew somebody was going to lose money at poker. So that's why they put the money on the table.
Might as well be them.
Yeah, might as well be them. I might as well be the sober one.
God, that's awesome.
So, okay. So, like I said, if you want to take advantage of people that way, I don't necessarily encourage that. That was my younger high school days. My prefrontal cortex wasn't fully developed. I didn't know right from wrong. But as adults, you can kind of judge, is this for fun or is this for competitiveness? And if you can't judge, ask. And in fact, even if you can judge, ask, because it helps establish norms for the night and puts everyone in a better place to have a good time.
Do you want to count those as our words of wisdom, or do you have something else?
I have something else.
Sweet.
The words of wisdom. So today we talked about a game that Travis and I developed over a lifetime. And while I'm really excited for our listeners to help playtest this, I also want to encourage you in this area that if you've had a dream on something since you were a kid, it's never too late. And it's never too late to be creative and create something new that you can develop to a point where you can share with the world as well. You know what? You may come back and tell us, this game's awful, you're stealing from too many IPs, it's whatever, right? We'll handle that. But
we have
it's
a lawyer.
Still, right. It's still a joy to be able to create something and share it with the world and to go after that lifelong dream. Even if you're stuck here, I'll channel Derek here. Even if you're stuck in the capitalistic rat race, going to a job you don't like, spending most of your time away from your family and away from your friends, there's still a chance to do something you love. And it's ultimately what got us to start Eldorado Gaming in the first place, was just finding time in our life for something that we love, that we could share with each other, with the world, give us an excuse to go to conventions and make money doing it. And this is another one of those things, and it doesn't have to stop with us. Listener, fellow gamer, create a game. I'll back it on Kickstarter. You message me your game on Kickstarter, I'll back it, because I love backing games on Kickstarter. I have a friend who just finished a Kickstarter game, and this is just something that is available, and it's a golden age of gaming. You can do it too.
It really is, man.
Yes.
It really is.
So let it not just be a new game for you to play. Please reach out to us. We're going to share this rule book with you. But also take it as an inspiration to do what you've been putting off, to follow your dream and relive that childhood inspiration.
God, I'm so inspired right now.
All right.
Just American flag waving in the background.
It's the American dream. Make a game that other people want to play.
Yeah, and base it off of tons of Japanese manga. All right.
Yes.
Thank you guys so much for listening. Benjamin, thank you for being a great brother and a great friend. If you want to get in touch with us, either for the game or for any questions or comments, you can contact us directly at mymythicalmeta@eldoradogaming.com. Don't forget to like, share, rate, review, and we will see you again next time. Adios.
Bye.
This episode was sponsored by Eldorado Gaming. Use the promo code META for 10% off your order. Please like, comment, subscribe, and share. This episode was edited by me, Travis Konishek, and our intro and outro music is by Tyler Heath of the Oh Hellos.